look at his screen. Like, doesn't that look real?
We do that at work.
Digital 410 Productions proudly presents the What's in Your Head podcast.
Digitized live from
Your company name here.
the studios in Cape Coral, Florida. It's the What's in Your Head podcast.
What's up, OG5? We just went live, and for some reason I'm getting pop-ups. No, I don't want to exit. So what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Another day, another year. Still having the same technical difficulties, but hey, that's what happens when you're a one-armed bandit doing everything behind the scenes by yourself with 2 computers, 2 keyboards, 2 mice, and 14 monitors. Anyhow, joining us again from across the river over in the deep depths of Fort Myers, Florida, Mr. Mike. How you doing tonight, Mike?
Oh, it's another wonderful Wednesday, buddy. How are you?
Your mic's splattering just a little bit there, fella. I don't know if
Just a little bit.
turn down.
Cut it down.
But yeah, I'm good. And joining us from parts unknown, because every time you see him on TikTok, he's in a new place. You may know him as Social Outcast on TikTok, but we know him as Adam. Returning to the show. It's been a while. What's going on, Adam?
Not much, man. I'm actually in Missouri. That's home base now when I'm not traveling. So things are good. Changed quite a bit since last time I was here.
You were in Kentucky for a while, right?
Yeah, so we travel. I do a couple different regions with the MLF. So I'm either in Missouri, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Illinois, and that can all change next season depending on how many regions I decide to do. It could be nationwide.
What parts of Kentucky were you in?
Paducah, Kentucky, and Calvert, Kentucky.
I think I've heard of Paducah, but not Calvert. Is that more far western Kentucky?
No, so Paducah and Calvert City are about 45 minutes from each other. So what it is, the MLF Illinois division is now out of Kentucky because they had issues with the Corps of Engineers in Illinois. So it's the Ohio River, Kentucky Lake, and Barkley Lake are the 3 main lakes the MLF does in Kentucky.
For our casual listeners who aren't into the topic at hand, what is the definition of the MLF?
Major League Fishing. It's professional fishing on different levels. They have the Phoenix Series, which I just came into this season. Then they have the Toyota Series and the Elite Series. You can't get any higher than that, basically.
How long have you been rolling around in that league?
It's only been the last half of the season, and I tripped into it accidentally. I was invited to do a tournament, and I just ran with it.
Nice.
I figured if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it to my potential and make some money doing it.
That's everybody's dream. You know, around here, occasionally, locally, we'll see like little bass tournaments put on. You won't know about it. You'll just show up at the boat ramp to go kayak fishing, and there's like 13 boats, trailers, and a boat ramp that usually has one, maybe, because these aren't like huge lakes. But that's Mike and I have talked about toying around, maybe downloading the X app before Twitter changed their name, or Tournament X or something like that.
Yeah.
And sign up for those. But the reason we had you on is you were talking about kind of a, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'd probably call it an utter goddamn nightmare, but you had an interesting day on the water this weekend. So break this down a little bit, and as you go through it, we'll dig a little deeper into it, because I don't know. I would just lost my goddamn mind. But I'll let you tell a story. Go ahead.
It's very frustrating. So to give you the full picture, in both regions, I fish differently. In the Kentucky division, I fish as a co-angler. In the Ozark division, I fish as a boater. As a boater, you control everything, where you go, everything else. And the co-angler just basically follows you and tries to catch fish. They have no real options, nothing.
You're just there to help bring up the overall rating for the boat, weight-wise?
Basically, yeah. But it's not a team event. Each one is individual.
Oh, okay.
So, and as a co-angler, it costs you just as much as the boater to get in and do the same competition, everything else.
It's a little odd.
Yeah. But so as a co-angler, you run into a lot of great boaters, a lot of guys that try and make it to where you can be successful, everything else, and it works out. But occasionally with any sport.
No, hold on. Sorry to pause you. When you go in, just because I've never participated or without other than seeing on TV or occasional video, I really don't know the first thing about it. When you're a co-angler, you go into the tournament with a captain, or they just put you with somebody round robin?
They randomly pair you.
Okay.
So like me and my buddy Tim, we decided I could be a boater in both, but we both wanted to get the well-rounded experience before we try and move up to the next level. So he's the boater in the Kentucky region, and I'm the boater in the Ozarks region. And it's tough being a co-angler. It gets you more skill in tight spots and just makes you better all the way around because you have to strive for it. You know what I mean?
Well, not only that, but I mean, you're being partnered up with someone you've never fished with before.
100%.
You don't know their quirks. You don't know if they like to do a lot of backhand casting. You don't know if they lose their shit quickly.
Exactly.
You don't know anything about it. And it doesn't make sense that you guys would have to pay the same amount unless they're trying to appease the guy with the boat. Because maybe he's saying, well, I'm here, I'm paying this, but I'm also paying for gas for my boat. I'm taking the liability at the insurance. So I guess maybe they make the captains feel a little bit better about the level playing field when it comes to the entry fee.
Not necessarily. So there's a little difference between co-angler and boater, but not much. And it's completely separate. So even though we're stuck on the same boat, he's competing in one category, I'm competing in another. They just, as a co-angler, stick you on a boater's boat because they won't let anybody fish individually.
Keep the numbers down?
Not necessarily the numbers down. It keeps everybody honest because, as with any sport, there's people in the past who have cheated, stuff like that. If they randomly pair you,
that's a good point. Because if you're a co-angler and you get put on a boat, that guy's not going to drive you over to where he hit his bass box last night and shoved the 10-pound bass into it because you're like, yo, what the fuck?
Exactly. And when there's $10, $20, $30,000 on the line, you got to find a way to keep people honest. And as a co-angler, you find some of the boaters, like I said, they'll go out of their way to make it to where both of you can be successful, and then you just have those assholes that will sandbag you the entire tournament, get pissed because you catch fish, will just make it as inconvenient as possible, like you're paying to be there to learn something and you're an amateur.
But you're almost like you're kind of like ballast to them, like, okay, he has to be here. I don't have a choice in this matter. And now I got 6, maybe 8 more poles on my boat I got to worry about, all his crap. Yeah, I could see where both sides could have their complaints.
Yeah.
But with that being said, if you have somebody who's on your boat, even a complete stranger, if they're having a good time or positive attitude, that's going to increase your attitude and your good time. But on the bad side, if strange dude on your boat, the old lady was giving him grief for going to the tournament, or he's having a bad morning, he can bring you down. So it's going to go either way.
Oh yeah. Well, and then in a way too, like if an angler's having a rough day fishing and by chance the co-angler's picking up all the slack where he's missed the spot he was supposed to drop his lure by 2 feet and the co-angler follows up and pulls out a 5-pounder, he's pissed about it.
I've seen that happen.
Yeah, and that happens all the time. And that's what happened to me over the weekend. They paired me with a kid, other than the day, I'm sure he's a great kid. I won't mention any names, but right off the bat, I could tell that it was going to be a rough day. Kid's 25 years old, driving a $70,000 boat. It was obviously his father's, no big deal.
Be fair, it could have been his grandfather's.
True, very true, very true. But and you talk to your boater the night before, and they're supposed to let you know what you're doing that day, so you can prepare. Because there's a big difference in the lures you bring, whether you're flipping docks or you're fishing 60 feet down in deep water.
Oh, that's right, because he's making the itinerary. He's the one who went out and pre-fished the area, figured out where things are hitting. Oh, over here at mile marker 23 on the third dock in from the left, there's a school of fish.
Exactly.
Or we're going to fish these lily pads half the morning, and then maybe go over here to where this hydrilla is not so bad underneath these trees. So you may not be flipping rooster tails under trees, but if you're out in the middle, maybe you are.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, like Tim and I, we team up for every event, and we pre-fish for 2 days. We'll fish everything, whether it's docks, deep water. We'll see exactly what they're biting on, so we're kind of well-rounded and know what we're getting into for the next day. And, you know, the kid was just like, you know, I don't worry about it. I know all these spots. I've got it under control. This is my home lake. That was the first breath.
Yeah, because an old bastard like us is going to have seen some things, been around. They know to be humble. But like, yo, I'm pretty good at this area, but if you know a few spots, if you want to point them out, you know, maybe if my places aren't pulling through. But yeah, you get that person who just, his shit don't stink, and they're young, because it's always young cats, high testosterone, very little life experience.
Well, and he was from a completely different division, different league, and just joined up that one super tournament for the money because it was double the money. It was a 2-day event.
Gotcha.
So we get to the first spot. It's a dam area. Not bad. You know, he positions himself to where he can be successful first. Cool. He catches a fish, and right when I go to cast where I'm going to be successful, he's like, all right, let's go. Drops down, puts the motor up, we go. We get to the next spot. Now, mind you, to paint the entire picture, none of us boaters or anglers from the MLF knew it until the night before when we had our meeting. There was 3 other tournaments scheduled for that same morning. The Big Bass Bash, which was over 1,700 registered bass boats. A college tournament, which was another 200 boats, and a high school tournament, which was 200 boats as well. So there's 1,700 boats plus out there before us an hour ahead.
And how many people are in your tournament?
There was 84 pros, and then they all had co-anglers.
And how big is this body of water?
You're talking maybe 20 square miles.
And you're all using the same boat ramp, same parking lot.
Well, so they all launched at complete different ends. But so now everybody was set to launch at 7 a.m. on Saturday.
Hold on. Let me pause real quick. Organizers, particularly organizers of an event that has an entry fee. Simple economics states the more people you have participating in your event where they're paying an entry fee, the more money you make, plus the more money that possibly the overall prize would be.
100%.
And I run this with World War II reenactments. It's a very small community, especially here in the southern area of Florida. I don't get when people are planning to schedule an event where they don't go onto Facebook or a few of the bigger name events websites. Let's just see if anybody else has already have an event scheduled for this date we're looking at. Because A, we don't want to be at the same place, same time, but B, we don't want to lose participants because they're participating and giving their money to somebody else. The fact that 4 organizations scheduled on the same lake, and I'm assuming, once again, I don't know, I'm pulling on my ass, I'm assuming they probably had to at least send a memo to the Fish and Wildlife of that area and saying, hey, we're going to have 1,800 people out on your body of water this weekend if you want to have a couple of crafts floating around. Wouldn't they say, hey, by the way, you're the 3rd group that's wanting to do this on this day? No one got a heads up. To me, it's insane. It's like, how does no one get a heads up?
Well, and that's the thing with the MLF. They run such a tight schedule because they try and organize 6 different regions. And that one specific tournament, it couldn't be moved to the weekend after because the weekend after was another tournament. And then
but the guy who organized the college fishing event, he could have quickly done a quick Google search.
The kicker to all of that 100%, instead of rescheduling for another day, both other tournaments decided to change the time and release their people an hour ahead of us, 6 a.m. instead of 7 a.m. Nice. So the whole time we're out there, every spot we pull up on, with the exception of a couple because they were just sand beaches, that was all the option left. It was picking up slop after other people. All the big fish had been targeted, and if they were smaller than the big fish they had, even if they were keepers, they'd already been caught. So the fish weren't exactly into biting something.
Nope.
It was a rough day. We started at 7. It continues on as a complete shit show till probably about 2 o'clock.
Well, let's not even talk water noise. It's one thing when you got 1,800 boats out there running, but when you have that many people running, that's a lot of noise.
It had to be complete chaos out there.
Oh, it was. There was not one spot you couldn't go to that had either already been picked through, or you passed 3 people going in, coming from it.
Or the guy sitting there giving you the stink eye because, hey, fucker, I was here first. You're poaching my spot.
Yeah, 2 days of pre-fishing out on the lake was for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, long story short, I get on a good smallmouth. It's probably about 4.5, 5 pounds. I'm on the back deck. I yell net. I drop down into the seat to go and bring him in. The kid grabs the net. He looks down at the fish and just jabs it with the fucking net in the mouth. Fish comes off, swims away. At that point, I'm older, so I composed myself. I wanted to throw his ass off in the water and leave without him and finish my day on his boat.
That's fighting shit when money's on the line.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And we continued on.
Not only that, but regardless of what your personal opinions are about the fish you catch, most anglers try to pretend at least to give a shit. You know, when you're taking just jamming it, it's like, come on. What the hell?
Well, so that's the thing. The MLF is an amazing organization. They do the best they can with everything, with rules, regulations. They run a very tight ship. But sometimes there's just those cocky assholes or greedy people that don't want anybody else to have success if they can't.
Yeah, well, you see that across the board. Yeah, whether you're a YouTube creator, an Instagram model, a podcast host, anybody who's doing something similar that you are but more successful at it, it shames them. And so instead of them propping you up, they're just like, I'm going to do everything I can to tear them down. It's weird.
Right.
You see that in everything.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's the thing, too, because me and my buddy Tim, we both do things as a co-angler and as a boater.
And as a couple.
And what's weird when you come in, that was good. You know, we might as well be. We travel enough together. I've spent more time with him this last month than my old lady.
I'll probably argue less.
But, you know, when you go into a tournament as a boater, it's like you're one of the guys. If you're a co-angler and try and talk to him, it's almost like you're not in the cool kids club. It's kind of...
Yeah, you're the...
the redheaded stepchild.
Well, at least, that's even worse for redhead stepchild because then they just replace you in movies nowadays. Well, yeah, it's just like you're the new guy on the construction site. It's like, yep, here's this person. Who the hell is he? I mean, it's one thing if you've been a co-angler in that division and, you know, these guys have maybe had you on their boat once or twice, but when you're just completely new to the scene, or as you're saying, he was in a completely different division, but that has to be painful.
But even then, I'll go as far as to say people, because I've met amazing people who've been co-anglers for a very long time, and that's a big problem that most people don't speak up about, or it's just talked about, not quietly, but amongst us, because no one else really gives a shit.
Oh, I'm sure there's been many conversations like, oh, Adam, who'd you pull? I got so-and-so, and everybody's like, oh, fuck, good luck.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it's, you know.
Oh, you got Big Steve? He smells like onions around noon, man. He doesn't wear deodorant. He's fucking... Oh, God.
The league that you fish in, is it total weight or is it the five fish limit? What?
Five fish limit,
Okay.
biggest weight. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and it varies from lake to lake. Like, you can go to the Ohio River, and a keeper is a spotted bass at 12 inches, or like Lake of the Ozarks, you have to have a 15-inch.
Yeah. Yeah. Different rules for different areas, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, and you know, I do not regret coming in and throwing myself completely to the wolves at the end of the season. I learned more about myself in the sport in the last 3 months than I have in 10 years. And it's going to make me successful next season. Because that's what this really was coming in, feeling out the last half of the season, knowing what I have to work on until February, and then coming in and mopping the floor with all these guys who are just cocky as shit.
A couple of things. One, the other benefit of whether you're the angler or the co-angler, particularly if you're with somebody who maybe has been doing it longer than you, you might pick up some tips that they're not even audibly given. If your perception is there and you're watching what they're doing, you don't have to ask, you don't have to explain things. Oh, that's how. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
That's the way you do it.
Yep. And you learn a lot. You do.
That's the thing. I get the point where people get annoyed when someone else is catching and you're not, because I mean, there's been times where me carrying Mike around, we're not in tournament. It's just like, fucking Mike's caught 5, I've caught nothing, and he catches no. Sure, there he goes again. Or Carrie does it to me.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I stay pretty consistent. My confidence bait is a Texas rig on with a worm on the end of it. I throw that all the time.
I suffer from bait
that
ADD.
Catches fish for me.
I suffer from bait ADD. I switch them poles every 5 minutes.
You and Ron, dude. You and Ron both are like that. It's like constant switching things up. But
here's the thing, though. If I catch 4 dinks on a worm, I'm like, okay, fuck this. I want something bigger. And then I know from my experience, my 8 pound, my 5 pounds, my 6 pounds, I've caught those all on either chatterbaits or topwater. It's like, okay, yeah, I can flip a worm, and I know I'm probably going to catch 4 or 5 dinks, but I don't want a fucking dink. I want something 2 pounds or over. And in my experience, I tend to catch those larger fish on something other than worms. I did catch the 4-pounder on a Walmart June bug whiptail worm, but most of the other big ones I've caught have been on hard baits.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this, coming from the level that I come at,
That's what
a worm will catch you a dink or it'll catch you a 12-pounder.
Yeah.
A worm is the universal sign for catching bass.
That's because that 12-pounder is going after the dink and your worm just got in the way.
Hey, you know what? If that adds another couple pounds, let them eat it.
That's how I got the 4-pounder. That's how I caught my first large fish. Me and my daughter were on our tandem kayak heading back to the boat dock, and I saw feeding frenzy on the seawall. Tossed my worm over there, pulled in a 4.5-pound fish. It was the first large fish I'd ever caught, and that was exactly it. It was trying to feed on the other ones, and that's what you want.
Oh yeah. Well, and then too, you got to keep in mind, like, there's so many variables between water temperature, depth, shade, cover for them to hide on, stuff like that. And
bass are one of the most finicky fish when it comes to every little detail. If anything, if the temperature's wrong, if the barometric pressure is wrong, they're either fired up or they're not.
Well, and to that point, this YouTube channel we're broadcasting on, my fishing videos have dropped off immensely over the last 3 months, and it's not because I haven't gone out fishing. It's because I'm lucky enough to live in a city that has over 500 miles worth of canals. The downside are the canals average a depth of 5 feet, and so it's 95 degrees outside all day long. Your water temperature is 92, and the water's 5 feet. Oh, and by the way, the city of Cape Coral sent somebody out there with a fucking weed eater and chopped out all the lily pads. The bass aren't biting. They're hiding.
I don't know, man. I'm telling you, you hate doing it, and drag a worm, you'll catch them.
I do try. I always start with the worm. I start with the worm, and then I move on.
I mean, trust me, I am the king of ADD. I will throw every power fishing bait I can before I determine that I have to throw a worm because I want to catch fish.
Yeah. I start with the worm because I'm like, okay, let's just get the skunk out of the boat. I'll catch a dink. I'll feel good about myself, then we'll move on. But I don't know. I finally caught my first 2 fish in the last 2 months, or the last 2 weeks, but we'll get that to that in a minute. With the amount of boats at this lake, obviously you didn't know this in real time, but if you checked on any related websites or social media pages since then, has there been any discussion of the overall winning weights were kind of lower than they normally are because, as you were saying earlier, all the big fish have been picked through by the time you guys got released?
100%. The winning boater was just over 14 pounds.
And that's out of 5 fish. That's 14 divided by 5.
5 fish, yeah. And then you got to think, which weight, I think it was right about 20 total. Which, that's not bad, but it should have been so much better. Like, it's a huge smallmouth lake. You can pull good smallmouth, largemouth, everything all day long. it was just so overfished and competitive that day on every level that if we didn't start at 6 a.m. when they did, it was rough going the whole day.
That's just,
and they don't shut the lake down or anything like that when you guys come in and do your tour.
Oh no!
So the public's out there on top of all those people.
So not only do you have all 3 or 4 of those tournaments going on, but you also have every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there,
every weekend fisherman
on his 1993 Stratus, out there trying to pull them out too. So
and I'll tell you this. There's nothing more annoying than pre-fishing one spot that's about 50 feet off the shore with a nice big brush pile. No one even looks at it the whole time you're there both days. You show up tournament day and there's some old guy with a fucking John boat sitting there digging his pole. Like, it's the most annoying thing in the world.
While he has his portable grill preheating on the front bench, getting ready to make some wieners. Only thing worse than that would be the pontoon boat with the full family and the grill and the dog.
Oh, those guys. And I'm not even going to touch that. But yeah, you hit the nose on the head right there. Lake of the Ozarks is either $1 million speedboats that create 4-foot wakes that you have to drift through all day while you're fishing, or pontoon boats that do the same thing.
Well, here in Cape Coral with our 4-foot deep canals at the deepest, a lot of times I'm with the high drill and my fish finders coming in at like 7 inches. All these canals are no wake. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
We have guys on Yamaha Wave Runner 5s, 4-stroke, just out there just laying into it in 2 feet of water. That's like you're making waves in a bathtub. There's nowhere. So it's just your boom, 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 boom. And I get it. You want to ride your Wave Runner, but what they're doing is the equivalent of taking a Gixxer or a Ninja out to the mall parking lot and then driving in circles for 2 hours. I don't get it. It's like, why wouldn't you take it out to the river or to the fucking ocean? But no, they just pull donuts in these canals and your boat's just like, ugh, sloshing everywhere. It's like, well, there goes the fish.
Well, and that's the worst thing out here too at Lake of the Ozarks. You'll see these pleasure boaters or the big pontoon boats, and directly behind them is 4 or 5 guys on Sea-Doos because they want to jump their wakes. Mm-hmm. So you have to go from like 70 miles an hour to 50 just to skip across the top and hope you can get through it without breaking the hull of your boat. It's a nightmare.
Well, when Mike was with me the day I caught the 8-pound bass out, he's the one that says "holy shit" in the video. Because me, him, and Ron went up to Lake Okeechobee, and where their boat dock is, they basically have like, I don't know, it's basically like the equivalent of 2, maybe 3/4 mile tracks for a drag racer, and and it's just tree line. And they just open those fucking bass boats up. It's like watching a water drag. We're out there in kayaks.
It's really cool, actually.
Yeah, it's cool as hell. I've never seen one open up like that before. But you just see 6 of them going straight down this 3-mile straightaway. It's like, holy hell, these things are fast.
I've seen stuff like that in North Carolina. I mean, dude just puts his boat in, hops on, and just hauls ass, out of the, away from the ramp. But I mean, this was like a damn drag strip watching them guys,
crazy.
Them 250 XSs and shit,
double rooster tails,
miles an hour out there.
Oh yeah. I've got some footage. I haven't edited, so I've got 3 weekends worth of footage to edit. But the Lake of the Ozarks tournament, the one before Kentucky, those perfect moments where everything just comes together and it's almost surreal.
Yep.
I got called at boat number 33 off the launch. There was over 200 boats for us there that day, and at the lake, when you come out of PB2, you can go left or right. Everybody was going left, and it's a 3-way split on which way you can go. Everybody went right at the top. I went left, and it was just glass. There was not one ripple in the water. There was not one thing. I trimmed up, put the throttle as far as it would go, and I actually passed my destination by about 3 miles.
Oh, shit.
But it was one of those moments where it was just too good to stop.
Now,
it's all motor. All motor. There's no boat in the water there.
Now, for the Kentucky tournament, how did you finish? What did you catch anything? Were you able to bag anything, or did he just keep bricking you?
I didn't weigh anything. And even him, he weighed 3 fish for 5 pounds. He didn't make it to day 2. There was a lot of us that just didn't. Even my buddy Tim, who I go and pre-fish with, he's got a great record. He's been top 10 the last 3 years. He's 17th place in the Ozarks division right now and goes to the finals next week. And even he had a rough time. Anything you pre-fished was not there when we got on the water.
It's insane. 'Cause it's just ran over. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the equivalent of like, hey, we're going to go walk these woods on Friday and maybe Saturday morning, and then hunting season it cracks open at 9 a.m. Sunday morning. And so you go and you do the planning, you kind of see where the signs are in the trees, maybe some scat, some bedding area, and then you show up on Sunday and there's 300 people out there. It's like, yeah, that was a waste of time. Should have slept in.
Right.
Because, yeah. Actually, I saw a video on TikTok. I don't know where it was. I think it was New Jersey. And it was opening day of duck hunting season. And a guy just has his camera, and it literally looks like he signed up for a costume 10K where everybody's dressed up like hunters. Literally, there's just hundreds of people walking onto public land.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, this is the downside of duck hunting in New Jersey on public land. It literally looked like a fucking 5 or 10K worth of runners behind him. Everybody just wearing hunting gear. It's like, holy shit.
Surprised somebody doesn't get shot on accident.
It's insane. Craziness.
So do you have plans to, possibly bump up to like the Bass Pro Tour or?
100%. The Phoenix division is just a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Once I get my bearings this season, and depending how this season goes, this might be my only season in the Phoenix series.
Okay.
I don't want to jump up to that level until I'm physically ready. I know I can fish at that level, but I feel like I can take a season and learn a lot more, especially about the electronics, and make it work more to my advantage.
Now,
Gotcha.
did you, like, you and I have known each other for quite a while. I've seen a lot of your content. It's usually you on a bank in the Ozarks under a bridge somewhere. All of a sudden, then you're on a kayak, and now you're on a goddamn bass boat. Where did that transition go where you went from being a bank fisherman to a kayak fisherman for a day and a half? I'm going to upgrade my lifetime Teton from 1998. Now you got a goddamn bass boat and you're fishing. Where did the bass boat come from?
Well, my buddy Tim is kind of to blame for this. Like I said, we were supposed to fish tournaments and it just didn't pan out. And I was like, I want to get a bass boat. So I looked on the internet and I traded my Harley for
Hear that, Mike?
Huh?
So did you hear that, Mike? We need a bass boat. You got a bike. Make it happen.
Right.
Hey, man, I got a center console sitting out there. Don't you worry about me.
But yeah, I traded my Harley for a 96 Nitro Z17 dual console. It's nothing super fancy, but it's not a pile of crap. It's got a decent motor on the back. And, I don't have to have the 21 footer with the 250 on the back. I don't have to have all the electronics. I spent 40 years learning how to read the water and have common sense, where 90% of the people fishing today, if you took away their electronics, they'd be lost.
You're the fishing equivalent of the, hey, fuckers, I still use iron sights, you and your red dots.
Exactly.
I know how to drive a 6-speed.
That's the best anti-theft nowadays.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, it took a very large leap. I always knew that that's where I was going to end up. I didn't mean for it to happen so fast. But, when you just choose to go for something, you go for it.
Yeah, Carrie and I have been, we want to get a boat. We'll probably start out with a bass track or something affordable, or, or hit up the used boat market. The only problem with the used boat market, especially if you don't know the previous owners, you don't know the honesty about the hours on the motor and everything else.
Very true. But for the fishing you guys will probably be doing, if I can give you any advice, do not get a bass tracker. You'll want to trade it in less than a year.
Yeah.
Find yourself mid-90s to mid-2000s, like a Ranger, a Nitro, something has like a 175 or a 200 on the back of it. You'll probably pay $8-10 It'll look new, and it'll suit you guys better, because once you get a boat, you'll kind of grow into it.
Now, is it true that the more flake the paint has, the faster it goes?
100%, and it guarantees you a 5 pound.
50%, absolutely.
Every flake is 5 horsepower.
That's right.
I don't know. I mean, they're not as bad now, but you still see them like, yep, they're still going with the flake and the paint.
Oh no! When you MLF tournament day, you can stand up while they're doing the national anthem and look out on the water, and it's nothing but sparkle.
And it's not ridiculous. Even the water; it's just the flake and the paint.
Funny enough, I had a 1993 stroker. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but 21 foot, 96-inch beam.
All flake.
Well, no. I bought this boat for $1,000 from a buddy of mine.
Wow.
Motor was blown. Spent another grand rebuilding the motor. Took it out on the lake, tested it, everything like that. It was painted white, and they took like tape, and they made like the stripes and everything on the side and whatever.
That's a good look.
and I was like, man, it doesn't look right. It looked too thick. It didn't look like gel coat or anything like that. So I took some oven cleaner and I started spraying it on there. I'll be damned if that damn sparkle paint wasn't underneath of it. And I found out later on
they plasti dipped it.
What's that?
They plasti dipped the boat.
They painted it in house paint.
There you go.
Like literal house paint. It wasn't even latex paint. It was just irregular interior paint.
Honey, get the roller. We're painting the boat.
Yeah. So I stripped all that off with some oven cleaner, got down to the sparkle paint, and I found out that later on, I guess a couple of years before he bought it and before I bought it from him, the guy got into an accident. Somebody T-boned him and ruined the hull. So he half-ass patched it with fiberglass, painted over the whole boat to make it like thickened up the paint. It was probably 1/8 of an inch of paint on top of what was already there. And
so it's Bondo paint.
Yeah. But I mean, I had some fun on that boat. I mean, it only had a 150 on it, but it still get up and move a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that was one hell of a piece of shit that I bought.
So you have any tournaments coming down the line?
So my MLF series is done for the season. On October 15th, the BWS starts for me. That's the Bass World Association. That's based out of Lake of the Ozarks. They're a relatively large minor league organization, but over the winter, that'll keep me busy, keep me sharp on my skills. And I'll get to tune in everything on the boat that I haven't yet this season. I'll get to know the electronics a little bit better, and just keep my skills sharp. Plus, the season starts February 17th. Fishing all winter is just going to prepare me for that opener because it's going to be cold as hell then, too.
Yeah, see, living out here is just so weird because, like, right now it's like I can't wait for it to get wintertime where it's 82 every day because it's just so damn hot right now, and they're not biting. I mean, 92-degree water, they're sluggish, ruggish bone at the best. And it's just like I'm just waiting for the cooler temperatures to come back. But then I bitch because it's in the wintertime it gets dark around 7, whereas in the summer it's dark at 9. So it's like a give and take. But it's like right now I'm just over the goddamn heat. I mean, it's so hot. I'm not proud to say that I own Crocs, but I will say that I only wear Crocs when I'm fishing, because when I first started kayak fishing, I wore flip-flops, and when you wear flip-flops on a boat ramp, the heel tends to slide out from underneath your foot.
Yeah.
And then you almost break your ankle. But it's so damn hot that when I'm on my kayak and my Crocs are behind me, they get warped from the sun. The Crocs actually shrink from being in direct heat.
They do.
And so mine are all, it's just so damn hot. It's like, come on. And
yeah, but I will say this. When it's freaking 3 and 5 degrees here and you guys are sitting there in 70-degree sunny Florida.
Damn right.
You're going to be thankful for that.
But we have to pay for that with things like hurricanes. But yes, and alligators. By the way,
this much.
Yeah,
I was gonna say I could tell you this much. I do miss some of those cold mornings about 6 a.m. getting out on like Lake Chattooga or Lake Hiawassee and just freezing your ass off in January, February, but you're going out to catch fish.
You can't tie your knot because your hands are shaking.
Yeah, right now it's perfect because it's just chilly enough at night in the mid-60s to where in the morning you get on the water right as the sun's coming up. It's all foggy and perfect top water weather. It's beautiful out here right now.
Yeah.
And actually it's really hot for this late in the season. I mean, it's October basically and the water temperature is still almost 80 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
But see, when you live in Florida and you fish in tournaments in Florida, you have the added benefit of the possibility of your large catch being consumed by a fucking alligator when you're reeling it in. Which, by the way, Mike, did you hear they have found alligators in southern Tennessee? That's how far they made it.
Really?
Yes, they've had them in Georgia, in southern Georgia, clearly now northern Georgia. They are now finding gators in the fresh water of southern Tennessee, and they say in the wintertime they just basically poke their nose above the water lines, and when it freezes over, they can still breathe. But yes, So people in Tennessee and southern
Wow.
Tennessee on the border, you guys are no longer safe from alligators. Those fuckers are going to eventually work their way to Kentucky. They're well on their way. If they're in southern Tennessee, they're not too far because Tennessee's long and skinny. But yeah.
Well,
Wow,
up
that's
Kentucky though,
wild.
it's got to go through a few dams. They wouldn't make it through though.
Yeah, I know. I'm from North. I grew up on the Ohio River. George
Okay.
Carlin used to have a joke talking about how no one in his neighborhood had polio because they swam in the Hudson River. They were tempered in raw sewage. Well, I was born in 78. And so from 1978 until about 1983, we swam in the Ohio River. And so as a young youth, and then when I would live with my mom during the summertime, depending on if we were staying in my grandmother's trailer with had a cistern, electricity, and indoor plumbing, we were cool. But if we were down in the cabin that was built in the 20s with just electricity, that meant we were shitting in an outhouse and bathing in the Ohio River, which me and my brother give credit to our longevity and our strength through COVID. Because we have immune systems like trapdoors. We, too, were tempered in raw sewage. So I'm very familiar with, the Kentucky area. But
Have you heard or seen much of the shape of the Ohio River nowadays?
my grandmother sold that property about 10 years ago. But the cool thing is she sold it to the kid who grew up next door to my cousin. So it's kind of in the family. And my mom lives in Warsaw down on the river. I haven't stuck my toes in it, but I've seen like the shoreline and all that. Let's be honest, it was never really the most beautiful river, at least around that area of Kentucky. Nightmare story. 8th grade, my mom's boyfriend rented a pontoon boat, and we were going down the Ohio River from around Boone County, Big Bone Lick to where Rising Sun, Indiana, where they put the casino in about 15 years ago. Saw a little stick sticking up. Didn't think anything about it. Went over it. The whole damn motor kicked up. It was a complete submerged tree. I mean, I grew up on boats. I grew up on boats in Ohio, so we were always on Deer Creek, Allen Creek. My dad had pontoon boats. We've hit the occasional branch, but this is and so I was by no means a newcomer to pontoon boats. I've spent probably 3 or 4 seasons on them at this point. It was scary. I saw the entire back of the pontoon boat. It was literally a complete submerged tree, just going down the damn current. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's a hot mess still now. It's deeper in the center channel, but it's 4 to 6 feet deep, and the bass population is almost next to nothing.
Wow.
There's millions and millions of Asian carp everywhere. You can go down a back canal there, and your fish finder will read there's a million fish there, but it's nothing but carp. You can hear them hitting the hull of your boat as you're just trolling through there.
Wow.
When you're reeling your line through the water, you feel all the tugs. That's just your line and your lure bouncing off Asian carp. It's so horrible up there.
Wow.
Carrie and I were out, and this guy was on a John boat, and it's on my YouTube channel. He pulled in a 35-pound grass carp off of a little circle hook and a piece of bread. Thing was freaking huge. So
Yeah, I think on my TikTok I have a video. I found it was almost a 45-pound grass carp at Tonka State Park here in Lake of the Ozarks.
Yeah, those things are insane. It's sad that it was a dink, but I finally caught my white minnow. He wasn't a whale, so I can't see my white whale. Carrie and I were out last weekend, and we've been actively trying. People are very cagey around here where they catch this fish, and they'll block out the backgrounds, and they're not honest. I've seen YouTube videos. I'm looking at background. That may be over off of Academy. No, that looks maybe.
The elucid peacock.
We're out in the normal lake I always fish, the one that has the water plant, Bat Bridge, the place that during spawning season I was pulling in those 2 to 3, 4 pound fish one after the other with my Guggen revolver. And Carrie's talking about, like, we're throwing worms, nothing's hitting. I'm trying chatterbait down in the deep depths of the 5-foot area. And so I head over to where the water plant is. It's just a little miniature place where they suck water in because it's there, they dug it down, and it literally goes from 1 feet down to 8 feet. So there's a shelf. But Carrie's talking about, like, when we first started fishing, we were pulling fish all the time in the hot summer. And I was like, it's because we were fishing with generic-ass Strike King red-lipped crankbaits from Walmart. So I got my generic red shrimp-looking Strike King crankbait from Walmart, put it on there, and I'm casting. And I'm close to the dock, but perpendicular with where that shelf is. and I get a hit, and I put in. It's fighting weird, and I got purely luck, because by the time I got him above my kayak, I just posted a video today. He falls off. The only reason I got him into my kayak, it was the rear treble hooks caught him underneath the gill in the neck, underneath the gill. The hook was no longer in his mouth. So when I pulled him up, he shook and fell on my boat. And I'm looking at him, and it's a juvenile. And so doesn't have the red flared front, don't have the lump on head. And I'm looking at the front half, and now I understand why they call them peacock bass, because when they're younger, the front half looks like a bass. But I'm looking at this thing, and it has 3 vertical green stripes, and it has the elusive yellow eye on the tail and a little bit of red spot. I'm like, is this thing a peacock bass? And so he was flipping in my boat because they are aggressive, and I get him, and I reach around to get my lip locks because I wanted to lip him on the lip so I can get a good look at this thing. And so I hold him at my camera. I'm like, this thing looks like a peacock, and he shakes and flips out of my hand. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to investigate. And I was just like, I don't know. I haven't seen one in real life. It looked like a peacock, but it didn't have the. But I got on my phone and Google. I was like, I'm going to Google juvenile, and so juvenile butterfly peacock bass came up. And at that point, I was 60%. But I'm like, it's not a big deal if you catch a peacock bass. But if you live down here and you've always wanted to catch one, you don't want to announce to the world you caught one and someone say, hey, stupid, that's a fucking cichlid. You know what I mean? You want to cover your grounds. And so I sent a picture of it to Mike, which I didn't have a picture for my camera. I had to grab a still frame off my GoPro. And my hand was, the way I was holding it, my hand was to the camera, so you couldn't see the whole damn thing, sadly. But you could see the stripes in the tail. And I just sent one to Mike, and I said, is this what I think it is? Didn't mention the word peacock bass. And then I sent it to 4 other people, didn't even say anything. I just sent them the photo. And now every one of them came back and said, yep, wow, you caught your peacock bass. So long story short, I finally caught one. He may have been a little under half a pound, but I'm just finally happy. And I'm more excited to know that they're in my regular lake, and they're new. So they're just going to continue to get bigger and more prolific. And so hopefully maybe by next season, I'll be pulling some nice 2-pounders out of there.
Nice. Yeah, that's our goal. Me and Tim and the old lady and everybody, we're gonna make our way down there for ICAST 24.
Nice.
In July, and that's my one goal while I'm there is to catch a couple peacock bass.
Well, see, my ex-brother-in-law, he knows where they're all at. He's the type of guy who mutes out the background. He gets the big ones. Only place he won't tell me the local spots. Like, I'll take you down the Everglades. We gotta wade through about 1,000 yards of waist-deep water with the alligators, but I'll take you down there, which I'm fine, let's do it, but we can just never arrange it. And so I finally caught one on my own, but he is Swampy Peacock, Johnny Swampy Peacock. He actually catches them from down south, and he brought a few of them up here in Cape and threw them in the lakes and the canal, so he's kind of like seeding the areas with them. So, but they are officially in Northeast Cape now, so I'm excited for that.
You know, then there's nothing wrong with that. I'll be honest, out here fishing my local lake, if I catch, I'm out pre-fishing or just normally fishing, and I go out and I catch a good run of bass, I'm going to release them in Camelot where I live in the water there. Because when it comes time, like, me and the old lady go down, we go fishing down there from the bank still. I still fish in the bank all the time. And, it leaves good fish in the area to catch, stuff like that. And I'll be honest, come tournament day, that's going to be my first stop.
Well, not only that, but in the case of the peacock, we brought them down here because we were overran with tilapia and Mayan cichlids. They're just all over the place. And so they brought the peacocks in to try to eat them to help clear them out. I mean, They're not worried about them eating the baby bass. We have so many bass down here. You know what our daily limit on bass is down here? What's your daily limit on bass up there?
Depending on where you are, it's smallmouth is 2, largemouth is 5, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I think the largemouth might even be less than that.
I think ours is 6 largemouth and 1 over 16 inches a day because we have so many of them down here.
1 over 16 inches?
And then what it is, Mike, you can do 1 over 16 inches or like 5 or 6 below.
I think that sounds right. Yeah. I haven't officially looked into that.
I don't keep track because I don't keep. I'm a catch and release guy, so I don't pay attention to it. But I was talking to a couple of guys. They had stringers. Like, yeah, we got our 6 for the day. Like, cool.
Yeah, up here, a keeper has to be 15 inches unless it's a Kentucky, in which case it's 12 inches.
Yeah, it's just so weird that we don't have a bass season down here. It's weird when I'm reminded, I can't. Yeah, it's not bass season yet. Oh, yeah. Okay.
You guys should have bass season all year round.
That's what I'm saying. We don't have a bass season. And so when I talk to people who live in other states, like, yeah, I can't wait for bass season to start. Like, oh, that's a thing. That's right. We can go fish for them year round out here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That don't stop me up here in the cold. Don't think that mid-January, February, I'm not going to be sitting in 60 feet of water dragging a jig 40 feet below me to catch a big-ass bass, because I'll do it. And I'll look homeless with 12 layers of clothes doing it. I could care less.
One of the things that hooked me on fishing down here is I grew up in Kentucky and Ohio. Like I said, when I was in 6th grade, when I was in elementary school, my dad got like an old 50s, just basic fiberglass boat, older than shit, had 2 bench seats in it and like an old motor on it. And we fished and didn't catch none. And then he got a pontoon boat. We'd go out in the middle of the night. We're fishing for walleye and everything else, and we're using minnows and this and that. And the only thing we ever caught were catfish. I think I caught a walleye we went to Lake Erie. He took the boat up there. Him and my brother got lost out on Lake Erie. I stayed at the condo and was fishing in the canal out back and caught a nice long walleye. But we always just struck out. And then down here, I bought a used kayak off a buddy of mine who had it sitting in his yard for 2 years. And I just told around on my YouTube channel, and I think I asked on TikTok, I found a bunch of lily pads, like, hey, should I think there's any bass down here? And people were like, yeah. So I went to Walmart, got a $30 Ozark Trail reel pole combo and a bag of worms, and I went out and I caught like 5 dinks in one day. Now, dinks are dinks, but being somebody who fished for off and on for 10, 15 years in Kentucky, and like, I'm going bass fishing. Catch any bass today? No, all bluegill. So the fact that I'm going down here and pulling in 5 bass in one day, that's all you catch. It's like we go out and we'll go out maybe 2 months in a row, and you might pull in 1 Mayan cichlid or 1 tilapia, but I'll literally, because we don't fish cut bait, I'm not pulling in catfish. I occasionally might get a gar that bites on a crankbait, but usually they fall off by the time I get into my boat. I think I've actually only had to de-hook 2 of them, and we've caught like 2 turtles. But we have so many damn bass down here. If you fish with artificial, you're almost guaranteed to bring in nothing but bass. And it's crazy being from Kentucky and Ohio, where like bass were, especially as a kid, like, I went bass fishing, and you never caught a damn thing but bluegill.
See, all I'm hearing right now is I need to make an excuse besides ICAST to come spend a week in Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just wait until about spawn season. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and out here, spawn season, that's the other thing, too. Smallmouth out here in Lake of the Ozarks, they don't go to the lake. So they spawn and run up rivers from the lake. So they'll come back to the lake before the water levels recede, and they'll stay in the little channels right there at the riverheads. And they'll sit there all winter long and wait. And then as they'll spawn, and as the water level rises up, they'll shoot down the rivers and channels. And it's good stuff.
And see, so here we have all our canals are interlocking, but they're locked off until they use, because it's all flood control. And so basically that bass is captive audience. So if people don't keep their big bass, hypothetically they should stay in there, but people keep the damn things. And so I don't know if the peacock that I caught grew up in that water system, or if it got transported there during the last couple of storms we've had, where they're opening up the spillways and it got pulled in from another canal. But I'm just happy he's there. So, but yeah,
right. Well, where there's one, there's got to be more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna hit up that spot maybe next time I'm out there with a rooster tail. And I heard they like the Z-Man shads. Have you fished with those?
The razor shads?
Yeah, they look like super flukes, but they don't sink like super flukes. They're more like, they're kind of like a top water. Yeah, it's
a floating plastisol. Yeah, and those things aren't bad. It's got a weight on the back of it, and it's kind of it's unique. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. It's definitely original. But I'll be honest, man. If you want to catch a shit ton of fish instead of getting something exotic and weird, get yourself a 4 or 5 inch spook with a good rattle in it, and just learn how to work the spook to where it jerks back and forth.
Yeah. Walking a dog.
Yeah, you can walk that thing, and they will hit it all day.
Yeah, jaywalkers, spooks, anything like that. Yeah.
Or do you know what a donkey rig is?
No.
You can Google it when we're done, but essentially it's like a soft plastic jerk bait, like a fluke, but you run a swivel in line and run 2 of them, one with the leader at 12 inches, one with the leader at 15 inches, or however you want to run it, and you work it just like a jerk bait. But when you're going through the water and you jerk it, they cross over each other, and it looks like a bunch of bait fish running. That's one of my secret favorite ones.
We use something similar to that, like I like to call it like a high-low rig, where you've got, your one probably 18, 20 inches, a little bit higher than the back one. You use that in saltwater a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So
this one, though, it's not on the same line. There's a swivel on two separate lines, so they cross over. Yeah.
Do you fish with swivels regularly?
Not at all. Not unless the lure I'm using comes with it, or that's basically it. Yeah, I mean, the donkey rig, the only one that I buy them specifically for.
Granted, I've only fished up north once in the last 24 years, but as a kid up in Ohio and Kentucky, swivels was the thing. Everybody had swivels on. And like
you're probably throwing rooster tails every day.
Well, down here it's just I was tying on all the time. I don't use the snap swivels, but I would see them up there all the time. For kids, it makes sense because it's just easier to switch baits and all that. But
yeah, now what I do use in not a tournament setting, I'll use number 1 snaps. They don't have a swivel on them, just the snaps themselves. And I'll tie the snap to the end of the line because, like you, if I'm just out pleasure fishing, I'm an ADD kid. If I throw something for 5 minutes and there's no bites, I'm throwing something else.
That's why I got 3 poles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I go down and I go fishing when we go take the truck down, and I've got 7 poles lined up in the back of the truck ready to throw every one of them at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dan does that. You'll see him double casting and using the drag reels, the reel on both hands on TikTok. He double fishes. Back to the tournaments real quick. We're talking about how the co-angler being mismatched with a random angler helps prevent cheating. One of the downsides and the negative aspect, you could consider it kind of ironic. It's sad, and that is the unintentional fish kill. We have the fish bags, try to keep them in water as long as we can, but stress and all that, there's going to be fish kill. I've only seen it once, and I don't watch a whole hell of a lot of them on TV. But I was watching a Bass Masters tournament, I think last year, and I noticed something I had never noticed before. They had 3 guys in the pro boats. They had the cameraman, the angler, and a referee. And that was cool because the referee would sit there, they'd pull the fish out of the water, they'd weigh it, they'd measure it, put it right back in the water. No live well time, no fish bags, no weigh. It was instantaneous, and then the official would automatically log it right then and there. So not only that, but now you have real-time stats. But more important than real-time stats.
I thought MLF did stuff like that too.
Like I said, I don't watch a lot of them. So this one I think
on the pro tour, right?
Yeah.
On the pro tour they do on occasion stuff like that. But now they have something that it's called the fish lung. It's something you put in your live well, not a liquid. It's actually like a bubbler. So say, for instance, you like the old fish tank bubblers where you'd put it in there and it had the sandstone and 1 million bubbles came out.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing on a larger scale. So instead of just relying on the water being circulated to aerate the water for them, it actually aerates it with millions of little bubbles throughout the entire time. You can circulate the water. You can add the additives. It's a lot better for the fish. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't a fish kill-off to a certain extent. I mean, of course there is at all of them.
I think they say it's roughly about 5%, maybe a little bit more.
Well, the MLF prides themselves on taking care of the fish. So even after the weigh-in, the ones that don't look the best, they'll throw them in a separate tank up front with the fish lung and all the additives to make sure that they're brought back before they're released and everything else. The only time I've ever really seen a large kill-off is these high school tournaments they have now.
Mm-hmm. The local regional stuff that doesn't have the back end for the equipment.
Yeah.
Those would be the nice ones to get volunteers to act as referees. I mean, because everybody has a tape measure, scale, and a cell phone.
Yeah, I wish that they would do something like that as well, or even do a 3-fish limit. Something a little different. Well, but they also are on that. A lot more fish are dying, and this is just my opinion, because all of the electronics nowadays that people have to fish.
Yeah.
Like you look back 20 years ago, you had a fish finder, you had a pole, and you had a trailing hook.
And the fish finder's primary goal was just to tell you how deep the water is, so you didn't drag your prop, because they didn't do a whole lot of fish finding.
Well, and now you've got guys out there with 5 transducers off the front. Yeah,
side scan, down scan, active imaging, 3D, radar, sonar.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They go out and fish during Saturday, then come back on Sunday with the cops to show them where the fucking car that they've been looking for 30 years is at, because they just found it on the scope.
But, and you know, for people like me who spent half their life just learning the water to be able to catch fish, I think it takes all the sport out of it, because you can literally roll up. The 360 will tell you what direction the fish are in. You face your live scope that direction, and you can watch your lure drop directly in front of their mouth. You can see if they like it, they don't like it, what makes them tick, and it makes them that much easier to catch. I don't feel that a sport that you have to have that many electronics to be competitive in is an elite sport at all. I think it's ruining the sport, but at the same time, I have to use it to compete as well.
And that's a requirement in the league?
No, not at all.
No, but if you want to remotely have a level playing field, you got to have at least something on the boat.
Yeah, well, and
or if you're a co-angler, you don't have a choice of what the captain's going to have. It's his boat.
Exactly. But if they limited it to, say, like 1 transducer up front, so you had the choice whether you had 360 or you had live scope or down scan, side scan, whatever you wanted.
Yeah,
I think that would put more of the challenge back into it. That's why the viewership for it's gone such downhill. It's like everybody's watching them play a video game. They stare at a screen all day. There's no wonder left in it.
Only problem with that is the sponsorships. Garmin, Lowrance, Humminbird, they would all like, fuck you. we're pulling our names off.
That's what's for. I watch Guggen Squad a lot, and I watch a lot of like one of their guys, John B. And he goes out there and he's got his active imaging, he's got his 360, he's got all this shit, and you know he's not even paying attention to what's going on around him. He's staring at that damn screen the whole time, whether he's crappie fishing, whether he's, you know, smallmouth, largemouth, it doesn't matter. He's staring at that. You can see your damn lure down at the bottom, and you're watching, you know, the fish literally, like, they come up to it and, you know, they swim off. They don't like that one. So come up, use something different, put it back down. And it's like, that takes like all the fun out of it.
It's kind of like the equivalent of having deer feeders right below your tree stand.
Yep. Well, and what's funny is another pro angler, Randy Blaukat, he made that same comparison on one of his YouTube videos, and people went nuts saying that it wasn't even the same, everything else, but it is. It's no different than spotlighting deer at night. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Because well, let me ask you this. Sponsorship aside, we see this in car racing. You have the vintage car racing series where, okay, we're only going to race cars between the years of, 1953 to 1969. They're going to have classes based on the engine size. And you're racing, with the exception of maybe the personal protection device, the fire suits and the neck braces, but like the rest of it, you're racing it as it is. I wonder if in the future we're going to have vintage fishing tournaments where you can have this basic bitch Garmin Striker 4 fish finder and a 25 horse motor and maybe a 9.5 volt trolling motor, but the rest is up to you.
Introduce it as like a different kind of series, like having no electronics or something like that. Yeah. Or, you get, like you were saying, like one transducer up front, and that's what you get. Make your best choice. Introduce it as a different kind of series.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not even so much that they're going to introduce it as a different series. There's honestly a movement coming behind the feeling of electronics taking everything out of the sport.
Right.
Now, yes, Lawrence and Garmin might have something to say about it, everything else. But, I mean, Lawrence and Garmin aren't paying for everything. The viewers, the people watching, what they want usually is what happens.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are saying that they won't watch it because it's boring. They'll look at the stats on everything and the standings at the end, and that's it.
You want to impress me? I want to see a cane pole fishing tournament, you son of a bitch. Cane pole and night crawlers.
That's right.
We actually had cane poles at that trailer down in the river.
And I mean, like me, I'm setting myself, I guess, what you would call with a disadvantage going into next season. But that's because I have the skills it takes to be elite without all that bullshit. So yes, I'll have the HDS 12. I'll have live target. I won't have 360 any of that shit. On my dash back at console, I'll have my GPS, my down, and my side scan. But when I'm standing there fishing, I'm gonna read the water like a normal fisherman, face my transducer that way, and fish. You know, that's the way it is, and I know I'll be successful that way. And that's sad because not 90, I take that back. At least half of the people that claim to be professional fishermen today, if you limit their electronics, they won't even be in the top 1,000.
Couldn't do it.
No, not a chance in hell.
Because there is, well, I don't know so much on the latest models, but once again, like on your Striker 4 and your low cost models, there is an art to reading a fish finder.
100%. But as well, I call it the redneck live scope. If you have a Garmin Striker 4, that's what I have on my kayak.
That's what I got.
You put it on split screen, you put it on 360 view and down scan. That 360 view is going to tell you what direction the fish are, and that down scan is going to tell you how many feet and how far out.
I'll have to figure out the 360 view. Maybe that's I have the A scope and the side imaging, but I can never figure out where exactly they're at.
Yeah, so it'll tell you what direction to throw, and then your down scan will tell you it's 30 feet away, 14 feet down.
Nice.
So, I mean, if you know how to read basic electronics, even, you could be successful out there. It's just a matter of, I think it's a little overkill. I mean, what's next? Are they going to be able to tell the sex of the fish and the weight?
First off, who are you to know what a fish's sexual orientation is and what their pronouns are, sir? How dare you?
You're right.
I think you need to apologize to the fish community. We laugh, but we're almost there.
Oh, I know. I'm just glad that the fishing community hasn't turned that direction yet.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Well, but then again, the people who are in the other community are the same people that assume that I don't need to see a picture of you and a dead fish. First off, asshole, I don't post pictures of the dead ones. Every picture you see me holding a fish, that fucker's alive and I put it back in there. I'm a catcher and leave. How dare you assume that my fish is dead? But anyhow. So yeah, that's the wonderful world of fishing. So before we wrap it up, back to the insanity of your fishing tournament, did you see any borderline acts of external voicing or of one's displeasure of another boat, like where people like getting pissed, like get the fuck out of here, or you almost hit my boat, or you crossed my line?
Well, everybody was annoyed at certain points because you'd pull up on a spot. There's 3 college kids, and you know they have attitude, and you're fishing the MLF and a pro series.
Well, college kids have also been drinking for the last 5 hours.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, obviously there was attitude and glares and other things. I mean, even me, towards the end of the day, the last 45 minutes, he was still blocking me in a corner to where I couldn't cast. And I yelled at the kid. I told him, I said, if you don't move this fucking boat up to where I can be successful, I'm going to throw you in the water and move it myself. And he moved it, and I fished that last little bit of time, and I didn't have enough time to catch up. But
joke's on you. I got GPS controlled troller motor. I'll just hit the button and it'll circle back and get me. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is a thing. You can now put your boat in at the ramp, and your troller motor will take your boat out, and then you can go park your car and walk back and hit the button. And
they have the Old Town Sportsman kayak will do the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually wanted one of those. You know, before you mentioned like the kayak to the bass boat jump for me, I was going to do the kayak league out here at first. I was going to buy one of those Sportsmen I was just talking about. And I would have been happy with that, but that wasn't where my aspirations wanted me to go.
Kayak fishing Well, kayak fishing is highly reliant on the type of water you have. If you're around lots of rivers, canals, or large streams, they're conducive. If you have large bodies of water, you're basically I think it's probably going to limit your.
Yeah. you have to have some kind of a
Propellant.
propulsion system or something like that.
Yeah, because the only reason
if you're in a large body of water.
The only
Like,
reason we covered so much ground at Lake Okeechobee is because Ron had a trolling motor on his canoe, and we hooked up static lines. He would just pull the two of us in our kayaks.
Yep.
Yeah, we hit Lake of the Ozarks all the time on the kayaks, and we'd go 4 or 5 miles in the big water, but then there'd be days where we'd go drop the kayaks in 10 miles upstream on the Niangua River.
Yeah.
And we'd float the Niangua River all the way back down, and it would be an amazing day.
That's the trip Mike and I are planning. We're going to try to do that with one of our rivers. Which one is it? Peace River. We're going to figure out where we can drop off, and then we're actually trying to do it over 2 days, which will be exciting because that means we're going to have to camp somewhere along the river in alligator territory. And that'll be a fun night of camping. But yeah, we're trying to make that happen in the wintertime. We're going to drop our kayaks and do a 2-day fishing excursion down the Peace River here in Southwest Florida.
That sounds like a lot of fun, man. I mean, even out here, they have, I forget what it's called. It's some kind of achievement patch or club. But it's basically taking the Osage River all the way from Lake of the Ozarks down through to basically St. Louis. It's 24 hours consecutively on a kayak if you don't stop.
Nice.
Like it's brutal. I want to do that next season, like in the early spring before all the yahoos come back.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Lake of the Ozarks is peaceful. All the tourists that come for the season are gone. The water's back calm. It's not loud and obnoxious. It's home again.
Back to fishing and money laundering.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Adam, thank you for coming on. Real quick before we wrap it up, we want to thank everybody for their continued support of what we do here. If you want to help support us more, please head over to what'sinyourhead.com or d-410.com. Click on that Patreon link, sign up and subscribe. It's only $1 a month. But I do know we're inflation. Everybody's got a lot of subscriptions. And you can also help us just by going to YouTube and watching our videos. So look up Digital 410 on YouTube. Go watch our fishing videos or our podcast. You got the What's the Scuttlebutt, What's in Your Head, Fail to Fail. Got my In the Garage series. And so there's plenty of content. So if you just watch those videos, that goes a long way to help what we do here. Adam, where can people find you on the old internet?
Right now, I am on TikTok at Social Outcast 83, and I just started a YouTube channel called Misfit Fishing.
Email me your YouTube channel. We'll include it on the link on the website for this video, and plus that way I can also subscribe to it as well. And seriously, let me know ahead of time if and when and where, if you come to Florida next, and we'll try to maybe meet up somewhere and get out on the water.
It'll be July this coming summer. We're going to go to ICAST, so we'll be out there then.
Damn, it's hot.
Hell yeah.
Mike, where can people find you?
Oh, all over the place. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the newly reformed X, at TYPB Mike.
No reason to call it X when everybody, like all the, on X, formerly Twitter. Can we just fucking call it Twitter? But anyhow, that's another conversation for another time. Thank you guys so much, and we will talk to you all next week.
This has been a Digital 410